This is Shaping Opinion, a production of O'Brien Communications. Can you describe your earliest fireworks display?
Well, I started working out at the firework plant when I was about 12, and I would go on displays with my Uncle Lou, but my most memorable display when I was relatively young was a display we did at the White House for President Kennedy a couple months before he was assassinated. And that was a heck of an experience. First time at the White House, drank champagne in the Yellow Room, drove my first vehicle, the White House tractor. It was the old Cadillac tractor that they had. I got to see the president. It was a real experience.
Do you remember anything about the fireworks at that time?
Well, naturally, red, white, and blue sequence and the Zambelli Pubadels and Zambelli Crosettes. It was an old-time Zambelli fashion display.
I'm Tim O'Brien. In this episode of the Shaping Opinion podcast, we're joined by Dr. George Zambelli Jr. George is from a family that has earned the title America's First Family of Fireworks, and he's the chairman of the Zambelli Fireworks Company. The premise of our podcast is simple. We talk about people, events, and things that have shaped the way we think. Today we're going to talk with George about fireworks, one family, and the American dream. In last week's episode, we talked quite a bit about Francis Scott Key and his Star-Spangled Banner. You know the line, bombs bursting in air. Well, the 4th of July is now upon us, and fireworks will be on display from sea to shining sea. But how exactly did we get to this point with our obsession with fireworks? Let's start with the history of fireworks. The Chinese get the credit for inventing fireworks. The story goes that as early as 200 BC, the Chinese were using green bamboo stalks and heating them on coals to dry. Once the stalks would overheat, the wood would explode, burst, and pop. The Chinese liked this because it effectively scared off large mountain men that would invade their villages. Somewhere between 600 and 900 AD, a Chinese alchemist mixed potassium, nitrate, sulfur, and charcoal to create the first gunpowder that was then poured into bamboo stalks and later into stiff paper tubes to make the first form of fireworks that we know today. By the 13th century, fireworks made their way to Europe, and 200 years later, fireworks became a fixture for religious festivals and public entertainment. The Italians were the first Europeans to manufacture fireworks, and it was in Italy that the aerial shell was invented and used in fireworks. The Italians also get the credit for being the first to discover how to use metallic powders to create specific colors. Fireworks made their way across the Atlantic when early American settlers brought them to the New World. In fact, fireworks were a part of the very first Independence Day, starting our 4th of July tradition. According to historians, the first 4th of July celebration featured a 13-cannon display, a parade, a fancy dinner, music, musket salutes, and a grand exhibition of fireworks that began with 13 rockets on the commons of Philadelphia. John Adams envisioned an annual birthday celebration for America that would be marked with what he described as pomp, parade, bonfires, and illuminations from one end of this continent to the other. Speaking of John Adams, it wouldn't be long before 18th century politicians would get in on the act. They were among the first to discover how to use fireworks to draw a crowd for their speeches. And ever since, fireworks have been a part of just about every major ceremonial event in America. Today, while Americans use them year-round, July 4th is still the biggest day of the year for fireworks. If you've ever found yourself in a lawn chair looking up at the sky some summer evening, waiting for that grand finale with your eyes and your mouth wide open, there's a good chance you were watching Zambelli Fireworks. Dr. George Zambelli Jr. comes from the family that has been known as the first family of fireworks.
My family got the name First Family of Fireworks because we started, as I mentioned, doing the display at the White House for John F. Kennedy. And we've done fireworks for and including all the presidents up through Obama. We did a display a week before 9/11 at the White House. And they really haven't had fireworks at the White House since that time because of what happened. And certainly they didn't think they should be celebrating. We've done displays for President Trump throughout the years, Atlantic City, Trump hotels, etc. So because of our relationship with the presidents, I've done displays a couple years in Kennebunkport at the Bush compound, so that I guess we're to American fireworks as the president is the United States.
They're the first family, and you're the first family of fireworks.
Correct.
Well, Zambelli Fireworks is one of the largest fireworks companies in the world, and it dates back to 1893. And that was your grandfather that founded it. Can you describe the story, Antonio Zambelli?
Antonio Zambelli, my grandfather, brought his pyrotechnic dream to America in 1893. He worked nights in steel mills, and he toiled with his pyrotechnic dream during the day. My father's older brother, Joe, actually used to skip school in junior high and go out and toil in fireworks. So he did it all his life. My Uncle Lou, when he got out of the service, did the same thing. My Uncle Carm, when he got out of the service, was part of the family business as well. My dad graduated from Duquesne University, and
your dad's George Sr.
George Sr., correct.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And he decided that he was going to take the ball and run with it. When he started in the 1950s running the company, they did 8 shows on the 4th of July. He built it to over 800 shows the week of the 4th, and he became the icon in the firework industry.
Today, how many, for the Zambelli company alone, how many 4th of July?
Well, the week of the 4th, we do between 800 and 900. We do over 2,000 displays a year, and it's a growing business.
Now, you mentioned your father and his role and how he became iconic. How did he grow the company? What was the key to his success?
Well, he worked tirelessly. To him, fireworks was a labor of love, just like it was for his brothers. But he would start at 5:30 in the morning, work all day, go home and spend maybe an hour at home for dinner, take a little nap, go back to the office, work till 11 at night. He worked 7 days a week. There was only one day that he did not work, and that was Christmas. And ironically, he passed away on Christmas. But he worked right up until the last day. He just loved it. And to him, the world revolved around his firework company and his passion for fireworks.
Now, this is a family business, and his brothers had jobs. How did they divide up duties and responsibilities?
Well, my dad ran the administrative and sales end of the business, and we had 2 plants. My Uncle Joe ran the one plant, and Uncle Lou ran the other plant, and Uncle Carm helped out with all 3 different phases.
And your mother was involved too, wasn't she?
Well, she was kind of the backbone of the company. She was the one that was there to support everyone. She traveled with them. It was not uncommon for my dad to hit 3 states in one day. You'd think he was running for office. He just never stopped.
As his son, how did you keep up with him, or how did you stay? Were you on the road with him at all?
Well, when I was actually 5 or 6 years old back then, you did not dial a phone number. You picked up the phone and you gave a 5-digit number to the operator, or you told her what city you wanted to call in the 5-digit number. And he would have me, here's the number, get the operator on the phone, get the customer on the phone. When I was 12 years old, I started working at the plant in the summers. I traveled with my Uncle Lou to shows, traveled with my dad to book shows and to meet with customers. Even when I was in medical school, I would take the summer off and either travel with my dad or do displays on my own. I got out and practice, and I'd work from early morning till I finished. I'd drive to Newcastle and the old Route 18 and help him get home at 11, get up and go back to the office, so that I got to spend an awful lot of time with my dad. The one thing that it made it so I couldn't do, I didn't have the time to open a surgery center, which actually my daughter and I are opening up in the next couple months. So now I get to spend a lot of time with my daughter and my other children, and I'm enjoying it.
It's obviously a family business, Fireworks, and you've always had your hand in it. You're the chairman of the company now, but at the same time, you're an eye surgeon. Can you describe how you decided to go, or when you decided not to just be a full-time member of the fireworks business and go into medicine?
Well, I think I was influenced a good bit when I was very young by my father. He grew up in the Depression. Company wasn't very big in the 50s. Actually, the next door neighbor had a double lot. He and his father were physicians, and I think my dad thought I'd have a better life if I became a physician than toiling in fireworks all the time. So that I ended up going to medical school, never lost my passion for fireworks. And when I was a junior medical student, I was on a general surgery rotation, and I had a half day off, and one of the ophthalmologists in St. Louis was doing eye surgery through a microscope. And at that time, ophthalmology was the only field that was using a microscope. I went in and I watched him through the microscope, and I knew immediately this is what I wanted to do. I loved the intricacy of the surgery, the delicateness of it, and from that moment on, I decided to become an ophthalmologist.
So you have two passions, fireworks and ophthalmology.
Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I do cataracts with a laser by day and fireworks by night.
Now, it sounds like your father encouraged you to go into medicine. You would think, if I didn't ask you the question, you would think on the surface that your father might have wanted you to go into fireworks and maybe not wanted you to go into medicine, but he wanted you to do that, didn't he?
He really did want me to go into medicine. On the other hand, I didn't want to say bugged me. He called me all the time. You know, I remember I'm in surgery one morning, and he was the only one that could get a call into the operating room. And he said, Governor Thornburg will be in Pittsburgh at 6 o'clock tonight. I said, that's really nice. He said, be there and spend some time with him. So
he didn't ask.
Yeah, he never asked. And, I said, would you do me a favor and give me like 24 hours notice from now on? But he never did.
Now, how long was your father with us?
My father was with us until he was 79. And at his last birthday, he said, I only want to do this another 20 years.
Wow.
He loved it. It was his passion. When he'd watch a fireworks display, he'd spend at least half of the amount of time watching the crowd. To see their reactions to the different types of shells, the effects. And he would, the next morning, come up with a new idea and what he wanted to display. It was his Zambelli pyrotechnic magic.
Well, that's a term that's used a lot around the Zambelli company, the Zambelli magic, but it's evolved. And you kind of just described how it's evolved, I think. And that is when you watch it and you watch the reaction, you get ideas for how you can make it better the next time. Since you've been involved with the company, how has the technology around fireworks evolved?
Well, I can remember doing a display in the 1960s at Fort McHenry in Baltimore. And we had a very primitive electronic firing system. It was actually nails on a board, and then you'd use a screwdriver to connect the contacts. And over the years, we come up with DigiQ firing systems, pinboard firing systems, and then we were the beta test site for the #1 firework computer firing system. So the technology has been in how you fire the fireworks.
One of the things I noticed is the canisters that you shoot up into the sky are still made by hand, aren't they?
Yes, all pyrotechnic devices are made by hand, whether they're low, whether